Are we recording? There we go. Hi, it's Morag from York Professional Pet Sitting and Dog Walking, and I'm here with Kaylyn from Wag A While Doggie Daycare. And we are here to talk to you today about the problems we're going to be causing, or the problems that COVID-19 is causing for your dogs and sometimes your cats. I know I've even heard from some clients right now whose cats are thrilled they are home. They are just going from lap to lap to lap. And I'm sure the dogs are too, and they're getting extra treats and attention and belly rubs and walks. And one day in the not too distant future, they're going to be left alone again. And this can cause some severe separation anxiety. And it may not be something that's noticeable to you. So we thought we'd chat and give you some tips and tricks on how to start setting them up now for when you're going back to work, and different things you can be doing to set them up for success, because no one wants to see their dog in distress when they're away, and you probably won't even notice it because you're not there, right, Kaylyn?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. Separation anxiety, it all of a sudden is upon you. It's there might be some subtle things but most of us always won't pick up on those things, and it's going to be the bigger and the sometimes the destruction, and sometimes that completely stressed out dog when you come home, or that kind of thing. So it's definitely it's definitely going to be a bigger problem than I think we anticipate.
Yeah, I think we all know that our pets are creatures of habit. I mean, you know that at dinner time for most pets, that at 4:45, it's where's my food? And their routines are totally offset. So the one thing that I think we did discuss earlier was getting them back on routine. So if you always walked your dog, in the morning before you went to work, start walking them at that time again. And Kaylyn also suggested that, you go out for a walk by yourself, leave the dog behind. It doesn't have to be with you.
Yes, it is important that they stay home. And, even where the family goes out for a 10-minute walk, if you've done, say, 3 different walks with your dog during the day, it's okay for you to have to say, okay, Fluffy, you're going to stay at home. And, you've given him something to entertain himself, whether he's got a toy, or, he's back in his crate, depending on how old he is. But definitely getting out there and being out there without them. It's not as though you're punishing the dog. You're just teaching them to almost, self-soothe, be able to cope and exist without you being there.
And even if your dog didn't have separation anxiety before when you went to work, could this be an issue now because everyone's been home, even if they didn't have a problem before when the pet parents were at work?
Oh, I mean, for me, exactly. I'll use my example of Sandy, my standard poodle. I can't go room to room, and she is right behind me every single minute. So I am taking all of those extra steps, saying, okay, you know what? You actually have to stay in the house. I am going to go out. Now the kids might be home or whatever, but I do things without her, because if I don't, and she's 3.5, and I can tell that she's becoming clingier and clingier and clingier. And then, what happens when I leave? Will she be okay? Maybe. Will she not? Because I don't bring her to daycare every day. And that's always sort of been a philosophy sort of mine, is that, it's okay for her to be at home. I think, the older dogs that are still at home, and I don't mean old, I just mean non-puppy, I for sure, definitely separation anxiety can ensue over time. But we definitely need to also look at those new puppies that people are getting, because they're just purchasing them now, or maybe they got a dog from the shelter because, I'm going to be home and I've got lots of time to train, which is fantastic. But this definitely, it needs to sort of be pre-planned before you get back to work.
I agree. Yes, I'm seeing the phrase pandemic puppies around a lot, and I'm not sure how I feel about that terminology.
Yeah.
But what people, you have to try and put yourself in the dog's shoes, especially if it's a rescue and you've got it just before all this started or during. I hear all the shelters are empty, which is fantastic, but they're somewhere.
Yeah.
And now these dogs have thought that they've come into the perfect lifestyle. Like there's someone here all the time to,
Right.
and it's actually setting them up for failure if you don't put in the steps in place. And no one wants to see those dogs back in a shelter, because all of a sudden when you're back at work, there's an issue.
Right. And that, I think, is something that we may see happening. You know, there are dogs that have come from the shelter. Now they're at home with you all day. You don't know, did they have separation anxiety beforehand? And now because you're at home for a couple of months, you don't notice it at all. And now all of a sudden you go away, and that just sort of just flares right up. Just like anxiety for people, they have their own anxieties. So, you know, these shelter pups might in fact end up back there, or even little puppies. People can't deal with the, you know, the destruction, or, you know, how their behavior changes when we go back. So we really do have to set them up for proper training at home now.
And yeah, and we talked a bit before this about crating. Now, if you had an older dog that was never crated, you're not going to start, you know, crating them now. But if you have a puppy, it should be crate trained. We're both highly in favor of crate training dogs, and you know, making the crate your dog's happy place. But so if you do have a younger dog and you haven't been crate training it, now is a good time. Even when you're making dinner in the kitchen, having the crate there, put them in there. Any other suggestions or thoughts on that, Kaylyn?
You know, absolutely. I mean, in terms of crate training, huge big advocate for it. But, you know, even when you're sitting there watching TV and the dog, you know, may not really maybe sitting on your lap or sitting at your feet or wherever, it's actually okay for them to be in their happy place and having a little treat, or maybe they're playing with their little special toy, or, you know, there's the new little mental stimulation games, things like that, where they're actually doing it where they're not actually with you. And that their crate, in fact, shouldn't be where, if you were, say, work from home right now, the crate shouldn't necessarily be where you work from home. So that, you know, they don't get used to the fact that, you know, somebody's always right beside me, whether it's just you in the home or you have a whole bunch of family. They're going to pick a quiet place where it is, you know, that safe place for them to go, and they realize it is going to be a calm environment. So that's what I would suggest.
Okay. So I think I put a post on our Facebook page yesterday asking if anyone had any questions, and nobody did. Everyone just liked the post. So I think that about covers it for separation anxiety, unless there's something else you want to add.
No, I think the only other thing I might add to separation anxiety is one thing that might be beneficial, and you can either speak to your vet or speak to somebody about, is Adaptil. So or Feel Away is for cats. So that's sort of the thing. There's a plug-in, there's a collar, there's a spray, that kind of thing, and it's just a very it's a synthetic natural hormone that's released from the mommy cat, the mommy dog, and it calms them. So it might actually be something to start ahead of time, so that, you know, especially around their crated area, that they're sort of feeling that. I use it at the daycare in our senior center. We use it in our grooming room, you know, and vet clinics use it. If you go into a cat room, you'll definitely always see a Feel Away plug-in spray in there. It's fantastic. So, you know, I think that's something to consider, even if it's for a short term, before, and it may help to prevent that anxious moment of creating that phase of separation anxiety.
Yeah, many years ago, we had some pets that we were caring for that had separation anxiety and used Rescue Remedy, which I think is fairly similar. And it always worked best when you mixed it in a spray bottle with water according to the instructions and sprayed it on the cat's favorite spot to lay down. Or
Yeah.
I was giving it to my teenager and our dog at the same time. Works on everyone.
There you go. All natural. So good.
You're right. Okay, so our next topic on our next video that will start in a few minutes is going to be socialization. So I will stop this one, and as soon as I find the button.